and it was a stretch of football in the first half still. In the second, it was when it was still a game.
Yeah.
And he's missing Nico, and then he misses that Schultz play was the one that really hurt. The one you were talking about, third down. Schultz there's kind of a cluster of blockers in front of CJ, and Schultz kind of late leaks out a little bit in the left. And if CJ just does the thing that Mahomes does where he doesn't even use a normal throwing motion, he just flicks it out there, just lofts it to him out there, like a forward lateral almost. Schultz is probably 30 yards in that play.
Yeah.
You know?
It was even Schultz has taken every opportunity to not make plays this season, but even on that one nice catch out to the right, CJ was throwing it under duress, but it wasn't a good throw.
No.
It was
Schultz
it
bailed
could have
him
been
out.
with a better defensive back, could have been pick six
100%.
potentially, and Schultz did a good job on that play.
Yeah.
It was simply a bad night for CJ. Yes, all of these other things that have been going on around him have led to CJ not being the best version of himself, and it's hard sometimes to decipher how much is his fault and how much is everybody else's fault. Last night, there were just simply way too many plays that there was no excuse for the throws he was making. It was a really bad performance, and it's coming off of a game in which he played horrifically in the second half and made a bunch of bad decisions last week. Earlier this week.
4 days ago.
He made, even when things were going well, he was still capsizing against Kansas City with mistakes of his own volition that there were really no excuses for. It's been a bad stretch. It's been a bad 5 quarters for CJ.
Yeah,
you know?
it's funny. Like, if you listen to his press conferences recently and you go back, if you were to listen to press conferences from his rookie season, it almost sounds like they should be flipped. Like, he's having the season this year that I think people expected him to have as a rookie last year. He can make a lot of mistakes. He's going to throw some interceptions. He's going to look a little timid or jittery at times. It's just that's the way it goes as a rookie. And that's what makes this so, I don't want to say strange. I mean, we've seen it happen in the NFL. But for sure, Texan fans who had very high expectations this year is that, like, anybody who's thinking there hasn't been a regression with CJ, like yesterday, if you're still on that tip that, like, there's, like, this is all everybody else's fault,
right,
and none of it to do with C.J. Stroud, if yesterday didn't push you over to the other side of that, then I don't know what's going on.
And I think, the injuries simply aren't an excuse because the injuries to the offense in general. I mean, the Ravens don't have a good offensive line, but they're coached well. And they've also got the benefit of having Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry that make life a lot easier for that offensive line.
Yeah.
So there's just like having injuries or a couple of subpar offensive linemen isn't an excuse for everything else. The sum total of it all is that Bobby Slowick, C.J. Stroud, various other performers on the offense, it's flat out not working right now. And if there's whatever the change needs to be, and I'm not just saying, well, you got to fire the offense. I'm not, like, there needs to be something systemic about the way they're operating.
Yeah.
If they do retain Bobby Slowick, it cannot be with the old, hey, you just got to keep sawing wood. And you're just, no, there needs to be full-blown, full-bore systemic change with a lot of stuff that we don't even have, we're not privy to.
Yeah.
But it's just flat out not working.
It's got to, man. So the Texans know now what's in store, by and large, for the playoffs. They will be the 4 seed. So there are no dreams of the 3 seed, no dreams of changing their lot in life again. And I believe the Texans have been the 4 seed every year they've made the postseason, if I'm not mistaken. Every year they made the postseason, it's been as a division winner. They've never been a wild card team before. So they've had a home game every time they've made the postseason. And I believe it's been as the 4 seed all of the time, if not a majority of the time. They've got a 79% chance of playing the Pittsburgh Steelers now, after the Steelers losing to the Chiefs yesterday and the Texans doing what they did yesterday. So you play the Steelers at home in the wild card round. I feel good about I don't feel great about anybody, but let me just comparatively speaking, the Steelers feels like a much more winnable game, certainly, obviously, than the Ravens do. There's still like a 16% chance it could be the Chargers and a very minimal chance it could be the Denver Broncos, depending on how games break the next 10 days or so. The thing that makes me most nervous about playing the Steelers here, Seth, is that I think 50% of the crowd is going to be Steelers fans.
Oh, that's true. You're going to lose the home field. Whatever it is. Plus, it's just emotionally depressing, especially given, I'm guessing, the way the fan base feels right now.
Yes.
That it doesn't feel like they're ready to just rally to the cause. I don't know how much any performance against Tennessee is going to change that. And there's, you're at the point now where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to play your starters a whole bunch in that Titans game, and yet emotionally it feels like, man, they got to get off the schneid.
I'm glad you're bringing up. Okay, I'm glad you're bringing up the Titans part of this. Clint and I discussed this on the post-game show yesterday, and I was excited to talk to you about this because you've been very staunch. Patch of schedule where you could make arguments either way. You clinched the division. There was going into these Chiefs and Ravens games. There was the best chance of you. The 4 seed was the clear favorite for you. There was a slight chance you could get the 3 seed. You had been pretty adamant about A, wanting the 3 seed, and B, especially on the offensive side, this team needs work.
They need the work, right? They need to get some things right.
3 seeds out the window now.
Yeah.
But I think the latter still holds true that they need work. So how are you feeling about how they should handle this Tennessee game?
It's almost like triage. You got to figure out, all right, is it worth the sacrifice for something that might be a lost cause? I'm like, at this point, is rest and health just the only thing you really can do to be better offensively in the playoffs? And just accept that, man, we didn't fix all these things that we've been trying to fix all season long, and I throw in the towel on that part of it and just try to get the best and healthiest version that you can. The Titans have a good run defense. Do I trust that one game versus the Titans is all of a sudden going to figure out the Texans are going to figure out how to run the ball?
Right.
I do not feel that way right now.
No, I don't either. And yet I think the offense should play against the Titans.
Just out of punishment?
Yeah, I do. Well, I think for a lot of the same reasons you thought they should play in these last 2 games. Like, it's not a good sitting an offense that stinks is not going to help you beat the Steelers.
It's like, I got an old car that doesn't work ever, so instead I'm not going to tinker with it. I'm just going to let it sit in the garage and hope for the best 3 weeks.
I also feel like at least on the offensive side of the ball, and this is not me absolving the defense of what happened yesterday. That was an embarrassment on both sides of the football. But the defense, I could see resting Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, and Derek Stingley against the Titans. Mm-hmm. That is an explainable thing to me, and you deal with it.
Yeah.
Titans are not a good offensive team. You deal with it how you deal with it. The offense, it feels like another game is a necessary step just to feel like you can compete in the postseason. They need more reps.
A little taste of success or doing things properly or something.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Do you know there's a decent chance, Spillane pointed this out to me yesterday, there is a decent chance that we actually get a Monday Night Football game in the wild card round here. Because
there's a wild card Monday night game?
There is, yeah, because remember when they added the extra round of the playoffs, it's 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and then the Monday night game.
What's that? Is that going to be on like Hulu or Peacock?
No,
I think
it's on
actual broadcast.
I think it's on. Yes, I think it's like a Joe Buck, Troy Aikman joint. I think it's like legit Monday Night Football. But that game last year was the first year they did it because that was the first year that they had 7 playoff teams. In each conference. It has to be a 4 versus 5 game because that's the only matchup that at that stage of the weekend doesn't shuffle the deck on where everybody needs to, because they reseed, as you know, they reseed after the wild card round, and a 4 versus 5 game can't change where all these other teams have to travel. So last year, it could have been the Texans, but instead they played at the slot where we have the Texans Invitational every year, Saturday at 3:30. Tampa Bay and Philadelphia was the 4-5 out of the NFC. I could see putting that one over there because you had Philly, defending NFC champ, playing in a wild card game. This year, as of right now, it would be Atlanta. It would be Minnesota at Atlanta. Sam Darnold versus Michael Penix Jr.
Ooh, it's intriguing.
I think there's a decent chance the Texans get a Monday Night Football game. Steelers involved in it?
So it's a primetime game.
It's a primetime game. I'm not wishing for it. I'm just pointing it out to people that the wild card round game could be a Monday Night Football game. I don't think a lot of people know that.
last year at the end of the season, towards the end of the season, it was the fan base was quite depressed after they got shellacked by the Browns at home. The difference there was that C.J. Stroud wasn't playing.
Missed that game,
in that game.
Yeah.
And then they turned it around, and they got hot, obviously.
They turned it around big time, too. Like, they turned it around behind the offense. They came back. C.J. came back the next week.
Yeah.
They destroyed the Titans 26-3. He had a great game. Mm-hmm. They go to Indianapolis, play in prime time.
Yeah.
Win a must-win game. Nico went off, 9 catches, 192 yards. And then they destroyed the Browns in the playoff game. And at that point, the Baltimore Ravens playoff game, I was disappointed in how they played, obviously. CJ still has yet to score a touchdown on the Ravens, by the way. He's played them 3 times.
Well,
the only touchdown that they've scored in those 3 games was a Steven Sims punt return. Other than that, it's been Kaimi Fairbairn field goals and Kamari Lassiter tackling Derrick Henry in the end zone.
The Lamar Jackson's average margin of victory over the Texans now in the 5 games he's played is more than 20 points,
it's
right?
33-9.
On average, 33-9.
33-9 is the average score. Yeah. Yep. It was 30.
So 24-point margin on average.
Yeah, the closest game was the closest game was CJ's debut in week 1 last year. They lost 25-9.
Those were the glory days.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't score any touchdowns.
Lamar Jackson was still like getting into Todd Monken's scheme.
Yeah,
he didn't run hardly at all.
Yeah, it was 7-6 at the half. It took him a half to get into Todd Monken's scheme.
Yeah.
he was still kind of working out the kinks.
The first couple games last year, it did look like people weren't sure about this experiment. What? The Ravens started off 0-2 this year.
This year they did.
I don't know if it's this year for the Ravens.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people gushing over how it's preordained that the Chiefs are going to win after their performance versus the Steelers yesterday, and I get, and you know what? That was depressing to me because it just shows you how little respect the most people around the country have for the Texans.
Yeah.
People are looking at that Ravens game versus the Texans like, would they really prove?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I watched the Ravens versus the Steelers last week, and it was pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
So that the Ravens. This is the same way I felt after the divisional round last year. I was like, the Ravens are winning it all.
Yeah.
So they still have to get over that Chiefs.
They got to go through Kansas City. You know, they got
to face Steve Spagnuolo.
Yep.
You know, they got to okay. So there's some tricks up a defensive coordinator's sleeve that Lamar Jackson still has to show that he can overcome.
Yep, no doubt.